Hold on to your butts.
Reboots are tricky. Bringing a landmark TV show, movie, video game, or whatever back into the public eye with a fresh coat of paint and a handful of new ideas has become a far too common practice these days. And it isn't surprising for most people to write them off, saying the original was better. And typically, I agree. Reboots are a dime a dozen and are only brought back to make a quick buck on a popular series. And because of this, reboots that try something new can get overlooked. Like Scooby-Doo! More specifically, the 11th incarnation of Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. Remember Scooby-Doo? Or like any spin-off or reboot of the series? I vaguely do too! Scooby has always been around, from the good old Hanna-Barbera tunes to the puppy power-ish. It's always here, and whoever owns Scooby-Doo is always eager to throw their hat in the ring to keep the brand alive and their wallets stacked with delicious Scooby snacks. Now, I wouldn't consider Scooby-Doo to be a groundbreaking cartoon or even a favorite of mine. It's something I remember watching as a kid every once in a while, but eventually moved on to something bigger and better. Anime! Despite that, conceptually, I think Scooby-Doo is pretty interesting, especially from a historical perspective. Back in the day, Hanna-Barbera was killing it with action cartoons, but concerned parents were all like, no. This programming is way too hype, and they'll just be disappointed later in life with the lack of fighting monsters and aliens and just general cool shit, resulting in most of these legendary action cartoons getting cancelled. This eventually led to HB producing more kid-friendly content, with Scooby-Doo focusing on solving mysteries, slapstick comedy, and the bad guys actually being non-threatening stinky old men and not being monsters whatsoever. As a kid, I loved that the show took this approach because it felt like it tiptoed near the horror stuff that I wasn't allowed to watch, but would carefully retreat back to something safe. It also didn't hurt that the monster designs were really cool. Shaggy and Scooby were really relatable and very funny, and Daphne, well, she was a total babe. But because there's not really a whole lot of substance to the original show and it felt aimed towards kids, I fell off the Scooby hype train. Then comes along Mystery Incorporated, a complete reimagining of how Scooby-Doo works. While still maintaining the classic Monster of the Week format, Mystery Incorporated shakes things up by including a much bigger mystery that unfolds as the show continues. Due to this, the show has more fully realized characters, and also a fleshed out location for the mysteries to take place. So if they're solving mysteries in one location, it's gotta be kinda interesting, right? Oh yeah, dude. Imagine Twin Peaks, but like set in Florida, and the citizens are aware and outrageously proud of how creepy their little beach town is. As a self-proclaimed most hauntedest place on Earth, Crystal Cove is filled with secrets, a beacon for the absurd and malevolent, and above all else has a dark past. Thank goodness too, because we have 14s and a dog that would have absolutely nothing to do without all these goddamn mysteries to solve. The gang is alone in the whole mystery solving thing, by the way, as most of the town isn't bothered by frequent monster rampages or other horrific tragedies, as it's a pretty common occurrence in Crystal Cove. And it's a means to make money for the town. Considering most mysteries and monster rampages take place in Crystal Cove, we spend a lot of time getting to know the citizens and learning bits and pieces of the town's history. Most folks, especially the gang's parents, are unusual to say the least. Take Fred's dad, the mayor, for example. The man is cold, manipulative, and incredibly greedy, but Fred and the town love him for one reason or another. Or Velma's folks, who run a paranormal tourism shop, which Velma hates. And other residents like the incompetent and always grumpy Sheriff Bronson Stone. Or the vivacious Angel Dynamite, a radio DJ that the gang occasionally seeks guidance from. Yeah, I'd probably seek guidance from her too. To super small time characters like a high school couple who constantly manage to be at the wrong spot at the wrong time. And there's so many more characters. Mystery Incorporated does a wonderful job of setting up a location for all these weirdo characters to live, interact, and most importantly, be a thread of this unraveling mystery. Oh, and the gang, they're overhauled too. From a design perspective, they look more or less the same, retaining their iconic look, but now with more exaggerated features. Very stylish. Fred, who looks more masculine with a much bigger jaw and svelte upper torso. Or take Velma, who retains her iconic nerd look, but is even more thick.
Like Zoink Scoob.
The updated look for the gang combined with the great simplified 2D cel-shaded art style really allows for each member to stand out, and altogether feels nearly unforgettable as original show. Alongside the updated looks, the gang themselves are much more than the old one-note characters you once knew. Fred is more than just a guy that barks orders. Now, Fred's seemingly way dumber, or maybe I should say completely oblivious unless it's related to traps.
Politics? That's adult stuff. You know, kids my age are into traps and solving mysteries.
Fuck you mean, B?
Shaggy feels more or less the same, but I'd say even more cowardly. While he's not afraid to scarf down insane amounts of food with his best bud, making commitments and decisions seem even harder for the boy. Scooby, like Shaggy, is more or less the same, but this time around has moments of bravery when it comes to protecting his friends, which seems like a reasonable upgrade considering he is man's best friend. Velma, similar to Fred, has a lot of changes. She's still very much the brains of the team, but feels a lot different compared to past incarnations. However, Velma was designed to have less patience this time around, so we see her getting frustrated with the gang more often, or at worst, working alone. And Daphne, wow, she's even more perfect. I mean, she's roughly the same with a handful of new characteristics. Daphne is the moral support for the group, who makes sure her friends are doing alright and spends even more time keeping Fred on track. However, what I love about this iteration of Daphne is she's far more independent, willing to take big risks on her own terms to solve a mystery or even make a point. Or just dress up like a hot goth lead singer in a band, whatever, it's cool, really cool. Pretty much the whole gang has, you know, pretty good character development, but let's take a moment to appreciate the hot goth girlfriend the world didn't know they needed. Also, in one episode, she dressed up like a princess, so I'm pretty sure Daphne's perfect. On top of these character changes, MI is written in a way that our main characters develop as the show marches on. Another bold change from the classic Scooby-Doo format. This may mean that Shaggy and Scooby aren't quite getting along at times, or Daphne is interested in someone that isn't Fred. This makes encounters with monsters or figuring out problems more dynamic depending on their relationships. These changes are what I find truly separates and ultimately makes Mystery Incorporated my favorite Scooby-Doo series. While the fact that the gang has a mystery to solve every episode might lead to the series feeling a bit repetitive, no one episode plays out the same way. There's always a monster or a criminal causing trouble in Crystal Cove, but there's plenty of episodes where the focus is shifted onto the overarching story, slowly building up a grand mystery. These episodes are fairly uncommon, so it might seem like a slog to get to these revelations. Fortunately, MI does a great job of leading the viewer along with breadcrumbs of what's to come. Mystery Incorporated plays out like a good mystery should, giving you enough ideas of how things might turn out, but offers a few twists and turns along the way. It's worth mentioning that Mystery Incorporated only had a 2-season run. Despite that, the 20-ish minute runtime, the pacing of the show is incredibly tight, managing to squeeze in character growth, exploration of different character relationships, a couple of scares and goofs, a mystery, and little nuggets of what's to come. So far, this sounds nothing like the old Scoobert cartoon, and to be fair, Mystery Incorporated is a bit mature compared to its predecessors. But it's still very much a cartoon, and as much as it focuses on a real-ass spooky mystery, the path the gang takes to get there is anything but realistic. While Mystery Incorporated leans away from iconic Scooby bits like running away from monsters, there's still plenty of goofy traps, slapstick humor, and funny bits that old fans will find familiar. A big part of Mystery Incorporated is how over the top things get, and it's over the top in ways that only make sense in a cartoon. Similar to the original cartoon, most of the monsters are actually people. However, they utilize a complicated device or costume that most small-town people wouldn't have the funds or the know-how to create. As the show progresses, the people underneath the mask make more and more intricate costumes, resulting in even goofier logic as to why and how they did it. In a way, it feels like a nod to how old Scooby cartoons portrayed their monsters, but it's also very different and funny in its own way. Some of my favorite moments are when the show is meta, when it points and laughs at the absurdity of what's going on in the show. There's even whole episodes that feel like a commentary on Scooby-Doo and older Hanna-Barbera stuff, which are way more fun than they ought to be. The first season is a bit more straightforward with mysteries, goofy characters, and light on the dark humor. However, by the time you get to the second season, MI has completely dialed everything up to 11. The mysteries, the gang's adventures, and the monsters become something you definitely wouldn't see back in the Hanna-Barbera show. We'll find the gang going on underwater escapades, helping iconic Hanna-Barbera superheroes, to fighting actual monsters. I don't want to say much more about that last bit, however, I'll leave you with this. There's an underlying paranormal element to Mystery Incorporated that is really cool, but you should probably experience that for yourself. Another fun component to the show is that occasionally there's themed episodes. And by that, I mean it's episodes you could tell the writers were feeling inspired by horror movies, classic Indiana Jones adventure kind of stuff, and goofy throwbacks to classic Hanna-Barbera cartoons. And that's why you should watch Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. It elevates a childhood classic. If you're a not kid like me that still enjoys cartoons and finds coming-of-age stories accompanied by paranormal, sci-fi kind of stuff, it's definitely worth giving a shot. As far as mystery cartoons go, Mystery Incorporated really goes to some crazy places, and by the end, I was legitimately impressed. I'll admit I'd love to see the gang misadventure their way through college, but who knows, maybe we'll see Mystery Incorporated return on Cartoon Network or become resurrected for a more mature audience elsewhere like Adult Swim or Netflix. While that's definitely a long shot, the 2 seasons of Mystery Incorporated are without a doubt the most fun you can have watching Scooby-Dooby-Doo.